Hello everyone, welcome back. This is Jeff at Ferrari FXS.
This is Mark.
And Mark is here with me. We're going back together with the timing belts. We've got the cams installed. Like I said, these are not torqued yet. Don't forget your O-rings underneath here. We've got these lined up. Like I said, do not use the marks on the gears. Use the marks on your cam, on the caps and the cam itself. Here, let me just get the light there. Make sure those all line up, okay? And this side here, like I said, we've got those lined up, but those are on a lobe, so they're going to want to move. We actually used the old belt. We wrapped it around one of the gears, and we just took a pair of pliers and pinched it and moved it to the position that we wanted, and then we locked them in with this pair of vice grips. And like I said, this looks weird. This is not in the 348 manual, but this is a 360 tool, basically. The 360s use those for the timing belts, so to lock their gears.
And by the way, we used this as a scrap wrench. That's what we really did. We put it on one of them, you know, used our channel locks and able to turn the cam into the position that we needed.
Okay, so the marks all line up over here. As you can see here, let me get the flashlight here. Those line up there. Those line up there. And like I said, those will stay in position. We'll probably lock the other side too here in a second. So make sure all four, when we put the belt on, just to make sure nothing moves. And then right now we're in the process of putting new tensioner bearings on. We've kind of like started here a little bit. I know probably some people are going to be upset, but anyway, there's a washer behind here. This should have came off with the old one. The new bearing does not come with it, so don't forget to put the washer on before you put the bearing assembly on. So this is kind of like a friction fit. The bolt's not long enough, so we just took like a rubber mallet, and it tapped in pretty easy. We didn't tap it in all the way. We just tapped in enough so the bolt catches, and we're going to install it with the bolt and torque it up. I'll have to figure out what the torque is here in a second. The other one is a different style. Like I said, it's here in the box. So
this one's actually a fixed unit. This one is the one that actually applies tension. There's a spring that goes into that cup right there.
So we're going to get that set up here in a second. But anyway, I think that's it for now. We did put a new water pump on. I know I didn't show that. I just kind of got further along than what I wanted to, but I wasn't going to stop and video it. This is a new water pump and new hoses back here. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and continue on with this belt installation at this time. All right, we've got our cams all lined up. Like I said, you want to use your marks back here on the caps with the cam. That's lined up. That's lined up. And then we'll check these two over here. That's lined up. This one's lined up. Now you can see it there. Yeah, it's lined up. And then, like I said, don't use these caps here. They're just for reference only. I mean, I have them lined up with this mark here, okay? But in the future, your timing is always done by these marks, on the cams themselves. So don't forget to install your plastic covers back here if you had those removed before you put the bearings on. Like I said, we've torqued this bearing to 55 Newton meters or 47 foot-pounds.
40, I think.
40 foot-pounds. Like I said, this one here, we've kind of got it pulled back. We used a tie wrap to pull it back and then install the bearing with the tie wrap on there. And then we locked this in temporarily and cut the tie wrap off. This sets your tension. I know they talk about Stager meter, but in reality, this is what uses your tension here. This is the spring in this unit here, sets your tension. So anyway, we've got everything lined up, top dead center. We marked our case on our crank. That hasn't moved. We're going to get the belt on there. This line here still, we put a reference mark here straight down at the 6 o'clock position. It's still lined up. So we're going to put our belt on at this time, tension it up, and then we're going to run it through several turns, make sure our lines stay lined up, and then check our torques and everything. So we're going to go ahead and put the belt on it at this point. All right, we've got our belt installed finally. We've got all our bolts here torqued up. These are torqued. The crank bolt's torqued. That's 144 foot-pounds. And then these are torqued. Ran it through several revolutions. Timing marks still line up. And like I said before, your torque is set by the spring in here. So when you release this bearing, it applies pressure to the belt. I know they talk about a Steiger meter, but really at this point, you're just double checking the tension. So with that, I mean, because this actually sets it. This is not like the 360 or anything where you actually has a, it's on an eccentric where you can vary the tension with it. This belt here was just a pain in the butt because the tolerances are so tight. When you install the belt, it barely fits on there anyway. So it's a fight to get this belt on there, getting the teeth all lined up and everything. But we're done with this right now. So we're going to go ahead and reinstall the front covers on, and then there's some paws that we have to put on up here. And don't forget, when you put those paws on them, there's supposed to be a little gap. It's not supposed to be rubbing on the belt. We'll go over that when we get to that point. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and install the front covers on this because we're done at that point. And with everything underneath there. So we're going to proceed on. All right, I've got the cover installed here. I've torqued these up to 70 inch-pounds, both of these on the side here. And what I did was I got these little metal rulers, and I took two of them here, took these little steel rulers, and then I kind of put it in here and then torqued it at the same time. So that gave me some clearance, okay? You don't want a lot of clearance there, but you do want some, okay? So I did on both. Like I said, torqued these to 70 inch-pounds. And then, like I said, you just don't want them rubbing on there. And then I just went ahead and did 70 on these. These are probably about the same, a little bit more, but it should be fine. And then we'll go ahead and put the caps on. And then we'll there's a couple bolts here on these harnesses that go into here. And then really that will complete this timing belt cover installation. And then other than that, I'm waiting on some other gaskets for the valve covers. Those will go on next, and then once those are on, there'll be the spark plugs and then the wiring. So I'm going to go ahead and put the caps on right now. Also wanted to add on that these bolts here, there's 3 different lengths. And this side here on my engine, yours may be different, but on the right hand side here, which would be the driver's side, these were longer. These 3 here were longer. And then I believe these were like middle length, and then these were the short ones here. There was a couple short ones. Just play around with them. Like I said, you can kind of figure it out. They're same diameter, just different lengths. So you might want to check that out before you install them, kind of divide your bolts up. And then I got to put one up here yet. There's another one up here, so don't forget that. And like I said, you have 2 here for the harnesses, and then we'll put the little caps on here next. So anyway, just thought I'd give that little tidbit. All right, so I've completed the installation of these covers over here and over here. Installed my 2 screws here for these harnesses. Like I said, don't forget the short one up here on the water pump. And these were 5s and these were 6s, by the way. Anyhow, I'm just waiting for some gaskets for the cams. Once I get those, I'll put the covers on, and then once I get that, my harnesses, spark plugs will go in, the harnesses will go in for the plug wires, and then this thing will be close to reinstalling. I mean, I could put my accessory belts on right now also at this time, but I'm kind of holding off right now because we're going to drop the oil pan yet, so I'm kind of waiting on that. So we're not going to do that right now. So anyway, we'll proceed on. I have another suggestion here also. After you have all these covers on, I put my wrench on the crank bolt there and rotated it a little bit just to make sure nothing underneath is rubbing on that. So you don't want to put this all back together, have it in there, and for some reason the housing that you put back together on this is rubbing on a belt, and then you have to drop the motor or anything. So I would just go ahead and rotate that motor a little bit just to make sure everything sounds good when you get finished with these covers, just to kind of, you know, ease your mind that you have nothing wrong with that. So anyway, we'll go ahead and continue to move on. All right, we're going to install the valve covers. You have to trim your seals to size, so I've already done that. Just make sure your area here is clean of any debris before you do that. And then I'm going to use a little bit of sealant on these. I know some of these come with like a little bit of seal, like a red line in here that has sealant on it, but I use sealant anyway. Just gives you that extra protection. But like I said, just you want to check all your crevices down in here when you before you put your valve cover back on. And then Mark over here is already installing the other side. So we're going to go ahead and proceed on with the installation of the valve covers here. So once we get those on, we'll put the plugs on and a few other things. So we're going to go ahead and do that. All right, so we've got this side installed. These nuts are a 10, I believe.
Yes.
And they are 0.8 Newton meters or 70 inch-pounds. And then we forgot this one up here, I believe this wire, or this fuel line, which has to be, this fuel line here has to be rotated back down because it's kind of in the way. This has to be rotated back down, snugged up, and then this stud here is a little longer for this clamp. So this clamp goes underneath this nut. So we're going to have to take this nut off and put that on there. And don't forget your ground wires here. And other than that, this side here is pretty much done. This is like, we just have to put that on there yet. Mark is doing the other side. So anyway, we're going to proceed on at this point. All right, so we've got both sides on now, and then we're going to go ahead and reinstall the plugs at this point. And then we're going to put like anti-seize on them also. I'll show you what I'm using. All right, so this is what I'm using on the plugs. Just put a little bit, don't get it on the electrode. So yeah, just put it on there and install them. So I'm going to get those out here in a second. All right, so we put this anti-seize on all the plugs here. And like I said before, you do not want to get it close to the electrode. It may cause it to short out. So I mean, just kind of keep it back a little bit here off the electrode. And then we are installing the NGK DR8EIX spark plug is what it calls out. So we're installing those right now. Iridium spark plugs, as you can see here. Mark's just kind of like using a tool just to kind of lay them in there so you don't drop them down in the cylinder and possibly damage the plug.
So I'd get him started, yeah.
So he's just getting them kind of started in there, and we're going to go ahead and install all of them and then go to the plug wires. All right, we've got the plugs installed. We're going to do the torque on them, which is 16 Newton meters or 141 inch-pounds. So that was the torque on the plugs itself. All right, we've got our plugs installed. We put our wires on again. We put our wire guides on. Not too crazy about these. They're kind of big, so I don't know if I'm going to investigate if there's a different style, but we've got this installed. And same on this side, as you can see. Missing one here. I got to order another one, so I'll have to put that on later on. And then we started to install our covers back here. Don't forget to put your gaskets on and your wire harness here and your phase sensor. So have that installed. As you can see, we've got one yet to do over here. This one here takes that, it's like a clamshell clamp, so I'm gonna have to build that up, but that's going on next. And then once we get that on there, then I'll be able to put on like the runners here for the emission tubes on both sides. And then at that point, the motor should be ready to install in the car. So we go ahead and put this other cap on here and go from there. Alright, so I've got this cover on here now. I got these snugged up, and then you can see the stud that sits out here. So what you need to do is, you got this clamshell bracket here. You're going to install a nut on there first, and then install this to about the middle, maybe a little bit further than that, and then we'll stick that bracket on there. So let me put this on and I'll show you what I mean. Alright, so I've got my nut somewhere where I want it, a washer, and then this bracket you can see is two different sizes. It looks like the top harness is smaller, so it's going to go in there like this. We're just going to kind of slide this on there like so. Rotate this thing, grab these harnesses here like that. This may have to go back a little further because I don't know if I have enough to capture the other side. So the other side's going to come on same way. It's going to go like this, but you got to have enough material there to. So I don't have enough, so I'm going to have to screw on that nut a little further. So I'm going to have to pull this back off. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Alright, so I've got this back on here. I can feel that the threaded portion is sticking out far enough. So now I'll be able to stick my nut and washer on there and tighten that up. And then that'll be done with the installation of the caps on the end of the valve covers here. And then we'll proceed on to the emission tubes. Alright, so we've got our bracket on there. It's nice and tight. And like I said, wire harnesses are nice and secure. And we're going to go ahead and move on. Alright, so we're going to put these emission tubes on. They're right here. These clamps are loose here. We're going to thread those on. And then this line will run through here, and then we'll hook up this pneumatic line. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and install those at this time. Alright, so we got these emission tubes installed, so we decided to put the air box on. So this emission tube here, like your pneumatic line here, then the one line hooks to the air box right here, same as over here, as you can see. I had to take the connector off for the throttle body here. These will be connected here. And then don't forget your lower tubes here to hook to the valve cover, and then go across. And then let's see what else needs to be hooked up here. Like I said, over here, and then the small lines from this crossover tube here get hooked up underneath here on both sides, right next to the throttle body. So don't forget those. Like I said, these will be hooked up on both sides here. As soon as I push this down, we'll push this into place. We'll put the connectors back on the throttle bodies here, and then we can push the connectors on your other sensors here, which would be the mass airflow. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put this all together. All right, so we've got all the emission tubes hooked up. We hooked up these, tightened these, hooked it up to the throttle bodies. They're all hooked up, clamps are tight. Wire harnesses hooked up to the throttle bodies. You got your mass airflow or MAP sensors. Those are hooked up. Don't forget to put your wires back in your little holders here on both sides. And then tighten up the air box. This may have to come back off. I'm not quite sure when we get to that point, because the two lines that come from the oil tank, one's here and one's underneath. I may have to take this portion back off, but when we get to that point, I might be able to reach my arm in there and get them. But this is looking pretty good. We should be getting close to the reinstall back in the car. Let's go check a few things. I've got these clamps here loose, these hoses here, because I'm not sure because the alignment, so we can move this around on both of these. So if those are loose, but other than that, wire harnesses are here. Those are, like I said, those will have to be fed in individually when you go back together. We'll cover all that too. This goes to evap canister on the side of the car, so that will stay loose for now. And then I think this is either the brake line or the clutch. I think this is the brakes. And then the clutch, I think that's the clutch. This is the brake line, I believe. But and then we may be taking the oil pan off yet. We may do that before we put the car in or after. Haven't decided yet. Waiting on a part on that. So we'll go over that. But other than that, the top portion of the engine here is complete. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and make a different video for the rest of the reinstall back in the car. But this should cover the timing belt and the valve cover reinstall and all that. So stay tuned, keep on watching, and we'll make a few more on this vehicle. Thanks a lot. Please subscribe and catch you later.